No problem. No worries.
There. How about it? I'll bring this up. And I'll view it as a slideshow.
There we go.
How about, all right.
Now we got it. Now we see it. There you are.
All right. So this is my first drawing that I remember. I was 4 years old. So there you go. There's my art, the beginning of what I did. So I was just beginning, and pencils and papers were always around. So by the time I was 11, I started an art class. And I remember Sunday nights was always, after A Wonderful World of Color was always, or just before it, I guess, was Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And that was kind of the highlight was, you know, I really liked the animals and outdoors, and then, of course, the Disney program. We never knew what was going to be on each week. So these were the first gouache and oil painting stuff I did when I was 11. So I just kind of did that. And then through middle school, I started taking more classes and just drawing things that interest me. I like to kind of get out and do this kind of stuff. So when it came time to go to school, or after high school, I started looking around, and I lived in Glendale, and the Art Center College was, you're right, in Pasadena, and it was one of those schools that was, you know, it had a really big reputation, and particularly for advertising and stuff. And at that time, this is in the 70s, mid 70s. Well, I guess it was still in Los Angeles, and I applied there. And then my first semester was at the new campus in Pasadena. And so I went there. I went 2 semesters on, took 1 off, took 2 on, took 1 off. I went through like that because I worked the winters. When I was in junior high, I started painting windows at Christmas, turned into a sign business, and then once I got my driver's license, I could expand it. And then by the time I finished high school, I had 3 crews and about 7 employees going out and doing it. So we would go out and paint windows at Christmas. So it's pretty lucrative. And so I took my winters off and did some artwork and stuff. But about 2/3 of the way through Art Center, I kind of had a little personal crisis where I decided I didn't want to do illustration. They didn't have an entertainment track at the time. They had illustration, and that was pretty much it. And I thought I wanted to do it because my father was in advertising, and I was just kind of in lockstep with where he was going, wherever was going. But I just decided I need to figure out what I wanted for me, and so I took a year off and tried to make some money to go back to school. So while I was off, I started painting and selling paintings. And growing up, I was told, you know, you'll never make a living selling paintings, but there I was starting to make a good living selling paintings. So I did that for the year, and then I made enough money. I was going to go back to school, and I thought, well, gosh, should I keep going or should I go back? And I went back, finished, because I wanted to complete my degree, and finished with illustration, but I took a lot of fine art classes. And then when I graduated, I took off and started painting. So I didn't go to school for animation. I didn't. It was all foundation. And when I changed my interest to painting, I did a lot of plein air painting like this. And so this was really my interest, was really getting out and getting outside. It started doing watercolors. This is one of the first ones that I was doing out there, and some oil paintings. And so I started painting. It was, you know, kind of a lonely business. You're on your own. You're out and traveling around and doing things on your own all the time. And the first thing that really kind of hit me once I was out of school was, how do I keep teaching myself? How do I keep learning? And particularly after being surrounded by some really great mentors, how do I continue that on my own? How do I keep growing? How do I keep going while I'm out doing these paintings? And so that became my kind of preoccupation. How do I do this? And I know for some of you folks that are, you know, in kind of remote areas and stuff, that's kind of the same dilemma. Is how do you get yourself exposure to artwork and good instruction and inspiration. And so I really stuck with foundation and just stuck with foundation tools and tried to look for those things in great art and see how it built upon those foundation skills. So Maria, and I went in to get something. It was right after it was released. I went in to get something from the Disney store with a relative of mine. And so she wanted to get some things. I went in and I was standing there at the cash register, and all of a sudden a sequence came on that I laid out. Glenn Keane animated, and it was Part of Your World was the song, and Inner Grotto. So I worked really closely with him on that, and we had a great time with it. And I watched the people in the store, and I watched their reaction. They actually stopped what they were doing and started singing the song. It was surreal. It was a weird experience. And everybody knew the words, and I kept thinking, how do they know the words to this? And but they did. And so I turned to leave the store, and the door was blocked with people coming in the store singing the song. And I mean, they weren't dancing and stuff. They knew it. I didn't know how they knew it. But I realized at that point that I could go back, walk away from the animation. I could go back and paint. But from that day to my dying day, I could do hundreds of paintings, but none of them would have the impact of one film on so many people. So Robert Fawcett was a great illustrator. He was considered the illustrator's illustrator, and he did this in his work. He understood visual components or these visual design elements so thoroughly that he just put them out. I mean, he just kind of bled these priorities. Notan, there's a demo sketch that was mass, just mass alone, and mass dominant. So yeah, there's form in there, but I played it down in order to make the look of the movie, or the look of this image, more about the mass. And then form, of course, is really the effect of light versus shadow and how you put that together. Here's a hokusai. This isn't mine. This is a hokusai. But I want to put this out here because it illustrates the point. Hokusai did this as well. And here's an interesting thing. If you're interested in design and designing movies and finding clarity in your design, in this, take a look at the any area. You could look at the water. You could look at the path. You could look at the stones on the side of the path. You could look at the rooftops and the foliage and the little outcroppings of land. If you look closely at this image, every one of those zones has a completely different texture. The texture is unique and only placed within that zone. Okay? And if you look closely at that, Hokusai was just a master at that. And that's what he did. That's what set his apart. Van Gogh, years later, would then pick up that same kind of an idea, and he actually expressed it at first as drawings and then in his paintings as well. But he expressed that same thing, and it was one of the things that was evident in Sleeping Beauty as well, one of the things that it hung on to. So here's a little example of a few different things. None of these are mine, but I'm putting them up there just because I think they're great examples of something that's notan dominant or mass dominant, and then something that has more form dominant, but these high contrast local masses, like the cowboy here holds together as one dark mass, and the background is a light mass, and so on. Line and form, and then line and mass in this. And the accent, or when you look at these components, everything's a comparison. I mean, you can compare everything. But in this case, if you look at this image on the far right, the one contrast in here is the same thing that made Dalmatians unique and makes it special. And that was, if you look at on the girl's legs, the mass of the color, the brown that he put in for her skin tone, is slipped. He moved that. It's not, doesn't register to the lines like it does on the guy, on the plant, on everything. So on her down here, he slipped that, and it gives the illusion of a rim light. Okay, there isn't modeling in this. There's not a lot of shadow, reflected light, anything like that at all. It's very minimal. But what he did is by slipping that mask away from the line, he created the illusion of a rim line. That's what happened in Dalmatians. That's why they never used contact shadows, any kinds of shadows and effects in the movie. It was all line and mass dominant. And being line and mass dominant and diminishing form, that's what made it strong in its design. It's just like three colors. Your primary colors, if you mix equal parts of red, yellow, blue, you get mud, you get a gray. Well, the same thing is if you are undetermined about what your dominant factor is, line, mass, or form, and you have them all in there, you're going to end up with mud. That's the quickest way to make design garbage, is not determine what is your dominant feature or your dominant and then secondary feature, what you use as support. So kind of an interesting way to play. It's another example. This is Sirach, and you can look at the form rendering in his face. There's a lot of light and shadow and so on. And as it goes down to his body and his shirt, the stripes and lines take over. Another Sirach where the different value areas are handled differently. So it's not just light, medium, and dark values. It's the way that he puts the pencil to paper. And it gives it a different texture and texture quality in a different zone. Again, something that was manipulated in Sleeping Beauty and Dalmatians. Here's a Holbein drawing. And you can see he did the same thing as Sirach, or Sirach did the same thing as him. Very intricate, very delicate, very controlled, refined, beautiful line work and sensitivity in the face. And it appears that they go to just flatter lines down on his shirt. A lot of times, you know, while I was going to school and stuff, they always just passed that off as you know, just kind of simplifying and leading your eye into this focal area. Well, it does have that effect, but he also delivers a contrast in this painting or in this drawing. The contrast being illusion and surface, where line's always going to bring you to the surface. Illusion, when you contrast the illusion and surface, our eye is excited by that contrast. Just like light-dark contrast, the contrast between surface and illusion also has a real interest, and you just get sucked right in.
Sure. One of our participants asks, he's noticed that there has been a lack of entry-level jobs in the industry. Do you have any advice for recent grads and young professionals trying to break in?
Wow. I wish I had a splendid answer for that. I really don't have a great answer for that. I know I'm currently working at Disney Toons. I was able to bring on one person as kind of a trainee, and that was because the other artists were busy, and we needed to move ahead, and that's all I could get was a trainee. And it's really time and timing is really the only thing that I know. Disney Feature does some training programs. They have a robust training program, and they'll bring people in to do training. And,
right.
The other studios, I think, have some training programs. DreamWorks, I believe, has a good training program as
well.
And,
it is clearly past 7, but Bill, we'd like to thank you
really
so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and give us a great and amazing lecture. This has been amazing all the way around.